Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're your hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every weekday, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can find all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues affecting you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
Good evening. I'll call the May 19th Ag and Rural Affairs Committee to order. It's 4:02. Approval of minutes from the last meeting, which was April 15th. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second? Motion made and seconded. All in favor of approval of the former meeting minutes, approve by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Ayes have it. Motion carried. Number 3 is public appearances. I don't see anyone here, so we'll move on. Agenda review, Deanna, please.
No changes to the agenda, so tonight I'll just mention we postponed last month the well ordinance, so that is back this evening. It is very nice that Tracy can join us from Public Works. So Tracy Voss is with us today to answer any questions that might be helpful. And then our number 2 is a proposal for a new home by Mark and Carrie Kopis. Unfortunately, they can't join us tonight. I'll introduce what they're thinking and maybe get some feedback from you all.
Okay.
And then with the fact that Roger can't join us tonight, perhaps we should just postpone the discussion on new farm residences, but I'll leave that up to the chair.
We certainly can. I'm not opposed to move to. I'm sorry.
I prefer to postpone it.
Yeah. If you want to discuss anything about it, that's fine, but we weren't going to make a.
There was only a discussion topic.
Only a discussion item anyway, so it doesn't really
It's been a priority for Roger.
Yeah. Yes, I know it has. He and I talked about that this morning. So.
Yep.
Okay. Item number 5A, the amending Chapter 3067, private well prohibited, and Chapter 40-9, exclusive agricultural land waiver. Deanna.
So this of course came before you last month. There was some questions and concerns, so I put together, with Tracy's help, just a chart and a map to show which agricultural properties might be impacted. And there are agricultural properties that are nearby the I just think it happens naturally, right? Sorry. Okay. In the other room it does, that's why. Okay. So what we did was the blue lines are the water lines that the city has. The red line is our urban service area that separates really the urban area and the rural area in Fitchburg. And then we've identified the different agricultural agricultural properties that are nearby those water lines. And what I did with my chart then was each one of those parcels that was identified on the map went into the chart with the property owner, the address, whether or not there was a residential home, and whether or not if that residential home was within 150 feet of the right-of-way. So in the vast majority of cases, the residential property, the agricultural properties, one, doesn't have a home on the property. Number two, the home is farther away than 150 feet from the right-of-way, which means that even if their well failed, they would not have to connect under the current, as the ordinance is currently written. But homes within that 150 feet, if the well failed and they still wanted to have a well for agricultural uses, they would have to connect the house to the city water. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tracy.
And then they would have to drill a separate.
If they want, yes.
Well, if they had cattle.
Or horses.
Or horses.
And they didn't, they would have to have a separate.
We don't recommend animals on chlorinated water, am I correct on that?
Oh, no. My
No, we
baby
don't allow
horses
it.
are not drinking chlorinated water, Mark. Are you kidding?
So that's what I thought, that was the,
I was hoping
Keep
that was a joke
teeth nice
question.
and white.
there you go.
I'm like,
So, okay,
And the one you have Promega listed, that would only be used for gardens, right? Is that correct?
oh, my babies.
Which
I mean, at this
they
time-
wouldn't need a.
Yeah, they wouldn't need
It
to.
really doesn't apply to Promega.
Yeah, I mean, I see on the.
Yes,
there,
sir.
no,
just
it's
because
the
they're
house,
close
it's
to-
Dick Blaney's house,
Right.
It's the yellow house.
Oh, okay.
And it's not connected.
so it's just probably,
Promega owns it, but it's a leased out home or something?
yeah.
I'm not sure if they're leasing it or if they're just using it for their private.
I'm not sure at this point.
I believe that they are.
Am I right that anyone that is, although also greater than 200 feet, then is also able to replace the relative? We're kind of just doing the difference between 150 and 200 right now, because the ordinance is already if it's greater than 200, correct?
The ordinance
Well,
is the
greater
property
200
within 200 feet, but then the
yeah,
home
they can-
has to also be within 150
If the
feet of
property
the right
within
of way.
200 feet. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Deanna.
So I wouldn't think.
Any
it-
questions on?
Yeah, I just wouldn't think it would be an issue at all unless the property size for Promega was, acreage to where they might want to bring in animals. Or, have a couple of horses or something like that. That would be the only situation for them.
But they would be allowed to put in a livestock well, an
Yeah.
agricultural well.
But they have a greenhouse, right? They still lease their land out for farming.
But that's the only other issue other than Mark's. As
Yeah,
far as-
and is Gansert, how do they provide
Can't
water?
you connected?
The house or the watering of the plants?
I believe it's both connected.
I didn't
I'd
know.
have to confirm, but I know the house is connected.
I just had one question about I just picked up on the wording just because I'm so analytical, I can't help myself, I'm a healthcare administrator. So it says the director of public works may authorize the replacement. And I just think the word, it's a little bit of a play on words because it leaves a little subjectivity in my opinion. So I think it needs to read shall allow the replacement of private well, because I just feel like as a member sitting here on this body, an advocate for agriculture and farming in Fitchburg, it's my due diligence to just make sure if farmers, I'll just use myself for example, I'm not close to a water line, this will never affect me, but if it affects even one farmer in Fitchburg, it matters to me and it affects what would be C5. So if their well goes bad, it's just my hope that they can replace it and not receive any undue hardship, burdens, anything. Like if your well goes bad, fix it, replace it. You're clearly in the agricultural district area. We've talked about this so many different times. I just don't know how to make it more clear that that's my takeaway and my message. I just feel like this has been made to be overly complex. And I just would like to make a motion, I guess, to change that wording to shall if we get to that point, instead of leaving like subjectivity on the table. Like I feel like that's the whole point.
I want to add a couple things that we have talked about this a lot.
Like for
But
2 years.
This is just kind of first time, hearing
Yeah.
it firsthand. So I think I agree with everything you said. I don't personally like conditional without condition statements in anything, but municipal code, that is expanded to the entirety of Fitchburg's ordinance
I just
system.
feel, so like, Adam, I have baby horses, like I'm raising very expensive foals. And so if my well goes out like tomorrow, with all due respect, I don't have time to wait for someone who's on vacation for a week. And I'm not saying this is hypothetically, like I don't have time to wait on things to be put in motion and papers to cross desks. Like my foals need water and certainly not chlorinated water. So if my well goes out tomorrow, I want to be able to call Sam's Well Drilling and get something going. Like in 2 hours, I'll pay the emergency fee.
Rather than hauling water.
It's just not realistic. It's just not realistic because now you're hauling in water from a different source that they're not accustomed to, and they may have high nitrates in that water at that farm that I'm hauling to now.
Yeah,
My water's tested.
It is a burden. You'd have to find someone to haul it. You'd have to.
My water is tested. I know my water. I know what's in my water. I don't know what's in yours. And I'm raising livestock. Kevin Opperman is raising cattle. Like he has the cutest baby Highland cattle at the Stoneman farm. Like
They are cute.
we cannot haul in water from Farmer John because he may have, who knows, he might have toxins in his water that he doesn't even know about.
Those wells are permitted though. You don't have to replace that with.
Well, I'm just saying if we have to haul water at them, it's not realistic.
No, I'm
I
just
think
saying.
maybe this is, there's no reason why you couldn't drill a well for agricultural use right away, right? Is my understanding.
Well,
Tracy.
then you need all your permits for it.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah, and
Which
so
is-
what we're talking about is connecting an existing single-family home to that new well.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like then I'm in the same boat. So I'm not, my house will then just be without water, so I'm not gonna shower. If I replace my well, I want my well to be functioning for my home and my farm. I don't have $50,000 sitting there to hook up to city water tomorrow because I spent that on my foals. I mean, farming is not like overly lucrative here, and I think we need to protect our farmland in the city of Fitchburg. Like, we need to do all that we can in our power to preserve what we have left. Like, we don't have a lot left. Like, we're holding on, like, I'm holding on with grips. 5th generation sitting out there. So, like, undue hardships and, like, big asks out of these farm families is just not sitting right with me.
What I was getting at is you can replace your agricultural well for livestock without going through this process. The problem comes in that your house is connected to that, and so this becomes then a second well. You would have to drill 2, if I'm understanding this right. 1 for agricultural and then 1 connection to the main.
They want you to hook on to city water, and there's costs associated with
But
that.
you were not gonna feed your animals city water, so you're still drilling that well because it has failed to get agricultural use out of it.
You would have to pay to hook up to the city water, and then you would have to drill a well.
Yeah, that's my point. You're hit twice then because of
Yeah,
this
good
ordinance.
That was
point.
the point.
This ordinance is really not friendly to these 5 people.
And it's not inexpensive because depending on where the water main is and what side of the road it is on, and in my case.
Your case is different than most cases, just so you know, Mark.
Sure.
So I think it's important that everybody understands your case versus others. So when we put these water mains in today, we assess everyone. And if you're farming or agriculture, your assessment is deferred. So when you do develop, or somebody does develop that land, it will have to be paid for. When the water main went adjacent to your property at that time, because it was so many years ago, they did not charge that property for that water main. The neighborhood paid for that water main, not your property. You didn't get a service, but you also were not assessed for that main, which today would be at least $100,000 to put that main in front of your property. So I think it's important to note the difference, like when we went in front of Blaney's property on Lacey Road, we ran services into them, they're ag, right? When we did the Greenfield water main project and the Northeast water main project, if they were ag, we ran services to those homes, but they're also being assessed and your property wasn't. So I just want to make sure we all understand the difference between what happened back then, 40 years ago or so, and when the water main went in adjacent to Mark's home, and what we've been doing for the last 25 plus years when we go adjacent to ag land.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. But it's still, the cost, yeah, and I understand that, but the cost, because you have to bore the road, the cost to bore the road, in my case, is 19,000. I get the bid.
I'm just referencing the Stoneman farm. I didn't even know your farm was part of this. I've only been thinking about the Stoneman farm this whole time. They have that big old driveway.
And that is my understanding why the change was requested was because what was brought to me was we're worried about the farms that are very far away from the road. And what can we do for them? The Stoneman was an example. The O'Brien's was an example that was given to me. So when we drafted this ordinance, we looked at, okay, it's not just ag properties that are affected by this. Anybody in a residential property has to connect. Commercial,
Rightfully so.
They would have to connect, right? So we looked at their distances and how far they are away from the road, right? And that's where that 150 feet was set because, we looked at Said because those are where the houses are further back, right? We still have a number of residential homes that are further than 150 feet that have connected, or if their well goes back, will have to connect. But that was the comparison and why we looked at it. What's fair? They have to connect. If they're within 150 feet.
Are they farming livestock though?
They are not. But again,
so it's just not. It's apples to oranges for me. I just can't I can't compare apples to oranges. And I'm just sitting here I'm a advocate for the farming community. I don't care about development. I really don't. You can shake a stick for millions of dollars in front of my head and I'm going to just blink and pass on by. It's not of my interest. Development, and I heard the word development and when you sell your land and stuff, that's not of interest to me. I just really care about people who are trying to farm that this affects.
Can I ask a question? Because this came up last time I was just sitting over there, and then I thought when this was discussed at one of the other committees that the boring situation was resolved, correct? Because basically the landowner is just paying to get to the right of way, and if the water main is on the other side of the road, then the city is responsible for getting it to right? Okay. So that was explained incorrectly then.
So typically, so when we install these mains today, we run a service to their property line, right? So then they would have to run to their property line to connect, but they are assessed for that main. So they pay their fair portion of the cost to put the main adjacent to the property. In Mark's case, the lateral was not extended to his property line, but his property was not assessed for the main either. So that's the difference between.
So he would be exempt from this then?
He'd incur that road crossing because the service wasn't put in at the time of the main
So
construction.
why would he incur that then? Why would he incur that cost? This makes zero sense to me.
It's same thing for developers. If there's not a crossing.
You just said developers.
Well,
good,
residential,
develop, we're farming.
Whoever it is, if you're crossing the right of way post-construction of that main, you're gonna incur that cost. Whether it's for electric, gas, any utility, any crossing, a culvert, you're gonna pay for that.
So unless that was
You're gonna
put in at the time of the main.
That's true. It is true.
Electric you do not, and
But
gas you do not.
they also, the
MGE covers the.
If you're talking about a service, if you're talking about
Service.
primary extension, you're gonna pay that.
I understand. But,
And electric and gas are a little bit different because of tariffs, but, operating tariffs, not Trump tariffs, but.
Well, with water in new developments, when you put in the urban service line, they already know how many service outlets they're gonna put in the line before there's even a house built, correct? I mean, so they locate all and put all those in. So in Mark's case, I'm sure it probably wasn't put in,
And it wasn't, but again, I wanna point out, he
because
didn't
it was
pay,
before,
he didn't pay for it either.
I wouldn't pay for it either.
But,
yeah.
Why would I?
He didn't have a need
because,
for it.
but I'm just pointing out that today, and when we go in front of Ag Land, we do assess those property owners for those costs. They're just deferred until, if and until someday it develops. So for Mark's property, for example, he probably would have been assessed today's dollars, not old dollars, $100 per linear foot for that. It would have sat deferred until it was sold for development, and the zoning changed on the land. So we have that condition in it.
That's the key. We
I
have to
hear
remember,
so
the
much-
zoning is the safety net for the city. Because nothing can change, but the issue is, or at least for me,
Yeah.
I've got a $19,581 charge to bore the road. I have the bid right here. It's $19,581 to bid to, and that only gets across the road and hooked to the main. From the water box into the house is another fee. But it's $19,500, $581 to bore that road.
Wait a minute. So if the assessment is deferred, but they didn't get the main, and then they have to, the crossing, and then they have to pay to put in their own crossing, and then later get hit with the deferred assessment, isn't that a double whammy?
There's not going to be a deferred
Oh.
assessment.
Yeah, this property was never assessed. That means the rest of the neighborhood paid for this water main adjacent to his property. He was never
Rightfully
charged
so,
for
he
it.
wasn't using
You
it.
didn't use-
But the day, if it gets sold for development, that whoever sells it is going to benefit from the fact that main is there. So there, at some point, somebody will benefit, but everybody else paid for
So
it.
do you think all the
that's
farmland
why-
in Fitchburg is gonna be developed?
No, and that's not what I'm saying.
Cause I hear a lot of development talk and like, oh, when the farmland is developed, and when it's like, is that what this whole city like views Fitchburg farmland as, is like future development? Like,
No, not at all.
I
No,
just
but-
feel that vibe, like,
I'm-
oh, when we
Well,
develop that.
we're talking about a very unique location in the city,
Right.
down south side. There just isn't
I agree.
really
You
anything
are.
quite like this.
In today's environment, yes, that would be deferred. It would be assessed, but would be deferred. And the developer would pay it, not the farmer.
It gets deferred until the zoning changes or development is how we defer these.
Exactly.
In
But-
connection, we do have so when I do them now, I also have a connection cost, right? So let's say you do connect, then we give you, I don't wanna get too far into this because it's really complicated, assessments are. But we have what's called we call it a planned value rate, which isn't like, if you will, an average cost per residential home to run water main adjacent to their property. So how we have it set up is if you connect, you pay that planned value rate. If you change your zoning and sell for development or sell for development, then the deferred becomes due. So we have it set up in two different ways.
But it still puts a burden on, in the case of, I'm the farmer that, I've got to bore, I would have to bore that road.
No, so we put this, if the house is existing, if you come in later and you didn't have a house there, we wouldn't have put a service in because the house didn't exist at the time the water main was put in. But if there's a house there, we run laterals to those homes.
But we did not.
We didn't, but we also didn't assess you because you were ag land back then.
Tracy, you bring that up, and I understand that.
Yeah,
But it's still the fact that in today's environment right now, if in my house, for example, if the well went bad, I had to drill a well for the animals, I still would have to pay that $19,500 to bore the road, because nothing was put across the road.
So that's
That's a
why
big,
we're here
that's a
today,
big
so we
bite
don't do that.
I mean, I don't know what your budget's like, but my budget is pretty tight. And everybody thinks that the farmer's rich and they can pay for it, it's no big deal, but they're
Yeah,
not.
we work jobs off the farm.
So, I mean, that's a big bite, that's a huge bite.
But I think it's important to understand the difference between your property and what is done today, and what has been done for 25 plus years. So I do want to point that out, the differences between.
Understand it, and
Because anything existing, we are running services to when we put these mains adjacent to.
I understand.
The properties.
But, and good, that's fine. But you have a situation here where it's, where that wasn't the case at the time that was done.
It should be like up to not up to the city, but up to the landowner. Like if you want to connect your house to city water and you want to spend the amount of money, and go ahead, like you can do that. But like if you want to replace your well and continue serving your family off of your well and like
And your animals.
your animals off your well too, then great.
I think
You
what you're
live in the
saying is
agriculture
just
community.
There's no compulsory connection, right?
Exactly. Like this is an undue hardship. Like this is not appropriate. It will not be appropriate with me no matter what angle it's taken. I've listened to this for 2 years.
It's such a disadvantage to the certain incidents where it may pertain. What's the advantage to the city that makes it worth the city's, ordinance to force
what's
them
the
to?
point? What's the
Yeah,
point?
what is the advantage that the city has?
Yeah, so on.
Because if there's an advantage there, I'd like to hear what that is, because otherwise you're directing the hardship just to individual cases that there shouldn't be any reason why, we can't talk about that and work that out so that it's optional to the landowner to either hook up to city water or to drink out of this well.
So the concern with private wells is they can become a potential source of contamination if they're not maintained and taken care of. And obviously, the whole city relies on the groundwater here in Fitchburg.
Yeah,
and
we
it is
host it, the landowners do.
But we're looking to protect that groundwater that we provide to the entire city. So having all these wells in our urban service area where we're providing, and if they're not maintained, we're trying to avoid the contamination of that water. And that's something required. The DNR requires that too, so, yeah.
My comment on that though would be if the well has failed, there's a new well which is going to have to test safe. So the contaminated water supply isn't.
Kind of takes
Well,
that
it may
off the
it may not have been contaminated. In the case of Fred McGibbon, the well collapsed.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking.
whatever reason you're replacing the well
They
for,
couldn't
any
pump
new
it.
well is
Pump it
going
out,
to
they
have to be
couldn't pump
safe drinking water. So
That's the point.
the low maintenance, nobody is required to replace a well that's functional, right? Or I mean, are people testing well water regularly?
Yeah,
For sure.
Well, especially if you
Metro
use
Road does
Metro
ours.
Road.
And nitrates,
Has
there's a
for
lot
years.
of, many different things.
Yeah,
I know we have to have our septic system inspected, but I don't think we've ever had to have.
well,
our
if you
well
have
inspected.
Metro Grow within a certain radius put into the ag fields, they will come out and test.
It costs,
Because we've had that and,
For years.
yeah, and then.
It's like $7.
you're
It's
talking
like
about the,
$7.
the protection to the
Seriously.
aquifer, well, the Stoner Prairie out Seminole Highway, that's one of the largest recharge areas for the city well, for, the city wells, for recharging the aquifer for water.
No,
I mean-
that's not where we get our water from. So it's important to understand the difference between a private well and a municipal well when it comes to that. So we pull our wells are very well protected. We pull our water from about 500 to 1,000 feet below ground. We pull it from an aquifer that's called the Mount Simon aquifer, if you will. And that Mount Simon aquifer has a shale layer that doesn't readily let the water come through it. It's a great confining layer. It helps with, not allowing contaminants to go through it. But not only do we have that, we got 500 feet of filter above it, for the groundwater. You're pulling your water out of that 500 feet above. And the great thing, where we're pulling out, we have the shale layer, we're 500 feet down, and it's those surface contaminants that all of that
So
is
there's a
protecting
large
us
area
from.
where that surface is being replenished.
But
To
they're
what I'm
coming
talking
in,
about
they're
is-
coming more the edges of the shale. I
it's-
mean, it is coming through, but it's filtering it very well, and that's why you're more likely to see contamination in your private wells than you are in a municipal, because we are so far down and we have that shale layer when we're pulling that water.
And we're not adding additives to our water.
You're not adding chlorine and fluoride, we do add chlorine and
Which
fluoride to
is,
the water.
you know, very conflicting in my opinion.
Yeah, but you gotta remember too that we are testing for hundreds of contaminants,
I'm
right?
sure, but
We're
I
not-
really don't wanna consume
Yeah.
either of those two things you just listed.
So I'm just telling you that there's, you know, we're mandated by the DNR, the EPA, and we are testing our water on a regular basis. Every month we're testing our water. Depending on what we have in our water, they set up testing
Sure.
requirements for us. And they're pretty robust, but they're more than what any private well would be tested. So you might be testing for nitrates, you might be testing for bacteria,
A whole
you might
host of
arsenic,
things.
you know.
I mean, I have
you
a
know,
list of things like this, cause I'm raising livestock.
Yeah, so.
I mean, that's very, I don't know if you know a lot about raising livestock, but
What
it's,
about a dairy farm?
it's very, critical. I don't know why or when animals became so sensitive, baby animals, but I don't ever remember having trouble as a little girl with baby livestock, but like I have friends all over and bulls are dying, animals are they're not as hardy as they once were, so I'm not making any mistakes. That's for sure.
And I think that to circle back around though, but that's the reason for the requirement of the abandonment wells, to abandon the wells, to make sure that if they are unused, that they're abandoned and that they're being kept out. You know, it's the reason for the well permit application if you are within the urban service area every 5 years, is to ensure that those wells are meet DNR codes, are being tested, and they're being kept out.
Rightly so.
I'm sure
Well, in my
I've never
case-
tested my well. I wanna test my
You
well.
probably have it. If you lived in, like, when you probably moved in, I bet it was all tested.
It was probably part of your
Yeah, because you're not on a farm like they are, right? And
Okay.
typically in the rural, if you move into your house, unless you choose to, it's only tested when you buy your
Okay.
home.
We test every year. Metro Road tests our water every year.
Yeah,
and
it's
has
like
for the last 30
$7.
years.
It's how much?
Literally like $7.
Oh,
No, Metro Road doesn't charge.
They don't, but like if you
They-
send it to like the water
understand.
department or whatever.
Two different things.
Yeah, it's like
But
$7.
I've got 30 years of well tests.
so what about when, I've got two questions and I'll ask them both and we can address them separately, but what about as the urban service territory grows or one development happens, then water main is installed and now the urban service territory has expanded, but it's also made more farms or residences that are not reflected by this map and couldn't possibly be, but it expands the urban service territory, and right now maybe we have two people that are affected, but in the future we might have 2 more, no more, 50 more.
That's why we gotta kick a little at them. We have to look out for us
Right,
and our
but
neighbors.
the urban service territory must grow, right? And as slow as possible, hopefully,
I hope.
but it must and it will. My second question is non-applied for zoning changes. So we have several neighborhood plans that are going to change the zoning on. No?
It does not change your zone. What the neighborhood plans do is change your future land use, not your zoning. So this well ordinance does not apply to those changes. It's not your zoning.
Until you physically change the zoning.
So what's the advantage for the city of Fitchburg besides having wells tested to imposing this on people? Did we cover that?
It's a matter of fairness. That's where the 150 feet came in, because everybody, like I said, I mean, you look at it as I'm ag, right? I'm different than the residential homes. But we looked at all the other homes that would have to connect, what their distances were. And that's how we set the 150, to be fair to those if their well fails and they have to connect, to kind of make it across the board an even balance between people, you know, the residents and the homes. That's where it came from.
Well, it's still,
And it is based on your comment of, what if you're very far away from the road? That's what I was asked to write, is an ordinance that would address if you're very far away from the home and it gets really expensive.
Stallman's, for example,
And Stoneman's was the
was the example we used,
Picking up.
and that's fine.
Mhm.
But their number was a lot higher than Because I did that also.
Yeah,
Stoneman's wouldn't be required
They
to.
would not.
They would not.
I thought they were on this list.
They're
Yeah,
on
they
there
are,
as having
because
being a parcel
once
adjacent
this-
to water, but not a home within they could put in a well for human consumption. There's only two
It's
places
just these two.
in the city
Oh,
of
it's
Fitchburg.
literally two.
It's literally
Let me
two,
ask,
but one of them,
let me ask
the
you a
other
question.
ones I don't think I.
Today,
They would be
Today.
covered by the new ordinance. that would
According to the
allow-
ordinance that's in effect right now,
Oh my God.
Says
if Stoneman's well
51,
failed.
200.
according to city ordinance, would they have to hook up or not?
They would, and that's, but with the ordinance that's in front of you, changes.
No, no,
they
I'm
would
talking
not.
about today, existing
Yes.
right now.
Yes,
They would be required to hook up.
yes,
Okay, that was the premise that we went under.
yes. That's where this
They would
language.
be
came
required to
from.
hook up, and it was a huge amount of money.
Mhm.
45,000 is a lot of money too.
Why do we want to do that to people who are farming here? Like, I
So
just don't
this
understand.
ordinance makes it so that less homes are impacted by it. It becomes really one until.
In this list, I'm the only one,
Yeah,
but it's still,
but that could.
Even if
urban
it's one
service area
person,
will
it
grow.
matters.
Yeah.
And
that's
it's gonna
45,000 is a
grow.
big bite.
Yeah, but yours is a land division, which isn't triggering the house that the ag land is on. It's triggering the house that's not going to be zoned ag anymore to connect.
No,
Yeah, but it's affecting his property rights. as far as to-
let me clear that up. Let me answer that question. And I have no problem with my daughter's house. And that's fine, that's not agriculture, once that zoning is changed. That gets hooked up, that's not a problem. I'm talking about the agricultural home, in case that, where I live. If the well went bad, we would have to drill a well for the animals. And we would also have to hook up to the city water. And to do that, that's about $45,000, according to the bids that I have. $45,000 is a big hardship for an agriculture enterprise.
Yeah,
I feel it is. Do you feel that it is?
More than your income.
I think I would get other quotes, but $45,000 is a lot of money. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
But I
Well, I mean,
think-
to drill, let me explain that bid. There's a bid from South Central.
Right.
And that does not include putting the water from the curb box in the house. So you've got that cost. Then you've got to drill a well, according to Sam's, when I called them, they said you should budget about $15,000 to drill a well in our area.
Yeah, that's right. 17,000.
Yours was 17?
Yeah, but it's deeper.
They told me, they told me to budget, I said, I need your number, and they said $15,000. So, and then you've got to hire a plumber to come and do all the hookup and the permits for that. And that's where I came up with the other 10,000.
I think it's important again to note that you are drilling under the road for yours, right? Promega has a lateral to their property line. They were assessed, but they have a lateral to their property line. And just to make sure that the $45,000 isn't what, if your home is existing and the way we install the mains today, it wouldn't be that high. So I do want to point out the difference again between what Mark is saying is his cost and what it would be if you had the lateral to your property line.
I agree.
The way we do it today. So I want to point out the difference to that.
I agree 100%. I agree with that, but it still is, for me, I'm looking at $44,581.
I got a quote for putting a well on my farm, a well, not a connection. Last year it was $6,865. So the difference between a well being $7,000 and a connection is nearly $35,000.
$35,000.
No, his connection is 19,000 in his quote. He's adding a well to it as well.
So
you got a
$13,000 difference still.
You got a great price.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting.
Yeah, 'cause when Amy built
Oh, it was very expensive. We have a lot of rock. and-
17,000,
Yeah, it was, I mean, we have a deep well. I mean, I wanted great quality water for obvious reasons. So we weren't gonna like have a shallow well. Not that they do that,
And
but
Sam's did that one. That Sam's did that one too.
That was from
Amy's.
Yeah.
Culver, sorry.
17.
They had put on their 120-foot deep well. I don't know if it's a deep well or a normal well or what, but
In this area, it's pretty normal.
deep. Yeah, it's pretty normal.
So anyway, that's where I'm coming from. It's a big hardship for us. It's
Well, I
a
think
big
it-
hardship for our family.
I think it can create hardships as like.
As we expand out
As
too.
the urban service line expands, so this is a time to.
I almost feel like we're targeting Mark. Like, I didn't realize this was like a Mark situation until just now. Like, I thought this was a Stoneman Farm situation, so now we're targeting Mark. And like I've said since the start of this, like, even if it affects one person in the agricultural community, it matters to me. So I guess if it affects two people, it matters to
Well,
me.
I think the option.
You have to have an option.
Yeah,
like-
there should be an option to,
Yeah.
you know.
If you sell your land and the developer
if you're
develops
a
it someday,
farmhouse up
Then they're
to
gonna pay for it.
the new well.
They can pay for it.
or- And down the road, like, who knows, maybe if it sells a place, then the new owner will have to look at
yeah,
that.
if your kids
But
sell your
it's-
farm,
That's why I say it will affect somebody though, whether
The
it's.
zoning is what triggers that change. The zoning triggers that change.
Okay,
But in my case, there's no zoning change. And the well went bad,
you just replace the well.
and I have to replace the well for the agricultural part of it. But then I also have to spend the money
Yeah, that's an undue
To-
hardship.
for the road and to put the water
It's just
into
not
my
working.
house. So that's a double fee.
Okay, so how do we need to rewrite this thing for the 20th time so that a farmer can just replace their well? Shall authorize instead of may authorize, so there's no subjectivity here? Are we ready to make a motion? How are we feeling?
Well, you would have to change you would have to change the whole ordinance at this point.
I'm sorry, I
Because
have
you would
to.
have to change you would have to eliminate the part with the 150 and make it 0 essentially.
I think there's a key part in part 3, in that 150 feet from the right of way is sort of inherently assuming that the main is on that side of the right of way. So I generally agree with making statements as measured as a distance from the right of way, but
This is
what if it was a
this is
distance
what we got
from the
into
main?
last time.
I was not
Yeah,
here
that-
last time,
no, you weren't
sorry.
here.
Can I clarify that
Yeah.
too again? I just want to repeat that we run services to the property line. Mark is different. So I wouldn't base it on Mark's situation. I'd base it on what we've done for the last 25 plus years, where if there's an existing home on the property, we run a lateral to their property line.
This is why I heard what I heard in the other commission, right? Because everyone in the last 25 years would have service under the road
Yes,
okay.
to their property line.
Change is good, just because we did it one way for 25 years doesn't mean we shouldn't bring it to the surface and
Well, it
address it.
still creates
I hate
a
that
pretty
saying.
big hardship.
I
for
really
me.
don't appreciate that saying, we did it this way for 50 years. Well, we're in 2025. We need to make change
But
sometimes.
it does create quite a hardship for us, for our family. If that were the case, it would.
Today, if as Fitchburg Road develops and that property is I've only got Stoneman's name.
South Stone.
Yes, that's all I've been thinking about the whole time is Stoneman.
No, I'm thinking, oh God, what's their name? Large Farm.
Oh,
O'Brien?
No.
Hammersley?
Durford.
Name all the farms.
Durford, yeah. So
Well, they're in town,
There's not really that
Town
many,
of
honestly, it's so
But-
depressing.
Yeah, but
as a main is run down the town of Verona side, if the other side of the road had a house, and it doesn't, but I'm just,
Well,
I guess I could pick anywhere where somebody develops a property far south, and they pay to extend main. If there's one house on that road between the development and the existing main, today they're going to get a service and they're gonna be assessed for it, right?
and you're talking too, that the main would be on the Verona side?
We don't know such a thing.
at this point.
I mean, I know that's.
My point was
that's-
just if somebody over here develops and extends Main, all the homes along that route are going to get services, whether they connect or not, they're going to get services. And so it puts,
It does, but the difference in it, when you compare them, the difference is they don't have an agriculture operation.
Yeah, they're just like buying a house in the subdivision or whatever.
no, I'm talking about
Yeah.
existing homes, anything that exists.
Doesn't
Nothing
matter what
new.
the zoning is. It
Doesn't matter what the zoning is, they're gonna get a service, so they're never going to face the situation where they're going to later be presented with.
Like a huge bill
mandatory
of 40,000 or something.
Right, because of the non-crossing, you
Yeah.
wouldn't have the crossing, that's the,
We can't really.
Costly
present
part of
people with
this.
$40,000 bills, like that
Well,
just
that's
seems.
where it's really different from the gas, cause when they ran the gas line down Seminole, we had the option to hook up to it, and it was so much a foot to run it to the house meter. But
have
it
an
was it was put across the road,
So these two
wasn't
homes
like water.
highlighted in yellow,
you know, different situation where you got a well, and then, you know,
Oh,
there's
my
city
God.
water. The option to either keep your well
okay,
or hook up to city water, it wasn't,
sorry, Deanna.
it was different with gas.
Were the two solid green ones, the parcels that have the,
The brighter
no,
green,
so,
the AS,
The different colors of greens are just the different zoning districts.
so Mark's property, I know where that is, but where are we talking, is the
Right, there's that one.
Is that this one?
No, I'm down the bottom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, Promega property.
But the Promega property's up here on Lacey.
yeah.
I mean, that's way in, that's a outlier all on its own.
It may be, but when the main went in, it wasn't.
Right.
I mean, it's just developed so much.
What's,
You know.
what's the other?
see, that'll be us
is that the
someday
Macy?
potentially,
Yeah.
so that's why we need to. Right, that's-
No, this would be O'Brien, here's Seminole, and that's the Lacey parcel.
Oh, that would be.
This would be the Plenty parcel, I think.
I guess.
Leonard, I think it is.
Yeah, planner.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm saying
Oh,
that right.
oh, okay, that's where the barn
There's no
is.
house, that's where the barn burned.
That's that was the
Oh.
barn burned down.
Okay.
That's the unthinkable.
Well, the difference I see in comparing the other ones, the residential homes that have to hook up, versus if we have to hook up,
It's not the same comparison.
I don't think
There
there's
is no
a fair
comparison
comparison. And you try to pick a fair point, but they don't, we as a city have touted that we like our agricultural heritage.
Have we?
And this is a big hardship for me.
It's
Unless the city
It's
is
a
trying.
big hardship for me too, because it affects another farmer
Unless the city is
or two.
trying to push us up.
Does it feel that way? Because it really feels that way.
it is very unique in that
We're one
in a
of the
very
few places.
transitional right now, because it is the normal now to get that crossing, and it's just part of an assessment. And if I understand that correctly, it just means taking that cost and spreading it out over a number of years, right?
An assessment.
Yeah.
That's typically how they're collected, but in the case of ag, it's deferred, so there's nothing collected until the
That's
zoning
right.
changes.
Yeah. So now
That makes
everybody's gonna
sense.
get
Defer
that service, that crossing, or a service stub, whether they connect to it or not, is up to them. And I think that's an important part of it, is that maybe now everybody gets the service, the lateral, but I think it's fair to remain with no compulsory connection.
Yeah, that's fair. Fair is not strapping someone with a $40,000 bill so they can function and live their life when they probably don't have 40,000 sitting in the bank.
Is it rational to not defer ag properties and they don't have to connect, but they still receive that assessment because they're also benefiting from the development of the facility improvement.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, you don't have to connect to the main, but you get the service, and you're assessed for that service. You're still allowed to retain your well usage, though.
In other words, it gives you're investing in the option that you could hook up,
No, thank you.
but not saying you have to, right? And you could drill your own well and use it for your house, but because, you know, like you're saying, as the urban service line, if it moves, do property owners in the ag area have to watch which side of the road they're gonna put the new line? Because it might affect their situation down the road.
They have no say.
Because now we would,
Yeah,
It wouldn't affect.
it wouldn't affect them now, because now when we put the main in, we would be putting the service across the road for new.
right, but if they're looking to, you know, turn their ag land over to their kids or something, and they wanna bring animals out and have horses there, and they find out that their well failed, and now they have to hook up, and it's across the road from their farm.
That's why we have to do away with this,
It's
George.
gonna
That's
bring
why we're
back a
here.
similar situation to what Mark's dealing with.
Yeah, that's why we're here, because we're looking to the future too.
The Wingra property at Fitchburg and Lacey, that's development for years, that is currently already in the urban service territory, isn't it?
This was probably the most unintentional problem that was ever created in the world. I am willing to bet whoever wrote this didn't see this coming at them. So that's why we need to look at now what's happening. I mean, we obviously make mistakes. So we go back and we fix them because we can. We're human beings. Like when this was written, I'm sure 150 feet was not a thought in anyone's mind that it would affect any one farmer in this way. I can't be led to believe that.
It's certainly, this is the time to address it.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, we've been talking about this for a couple of years, so we need to do something.
It has been a couple of years.
Yeah.
So the one thing I will say, and I would maybe ask Dan with this too, just, I mean, like from a passing this through standpoint, we can amend this if the group wants to, but if we amend it after having discussed it benefiting one person and that person is the chair of this commission, we have to figure out how that works.
I would have to recuse. I intend to recuse myself.
Can you like leave the room?
Yeah, but you've been here for the entire
I have, but
discussion.
we've not voted.
Yeah.
I will not be part of the vote. And that was what was suggested by, I assume, legal staff.
I mean, that holds no weight for me, the fact of who it affects, it just means to me that
Oh,
it affects someone.
I'm not saying anyone is doing that, but I'm saying from a appearance and standpoint for the city. I mean, I'm just.
I would
So
have
do
to
we,
recuse
like-
myself.
I see what you're saying. I don't know how that factors, I don't know the ramifications of that, but there's one person that this impacts currently that this board is potentially making a motion to amend something that only the chair of this modification benefits from or is impacted by, and what impact does that have on the chair, right? Or ultimately on the committee, but are you saying does somebody potentially look at this as, I don't know what the term would even be, but like insider trading type of thing?
I just want to make sure that, like we have, from a city standpoint, like full transparency of everything, that so like everyone knows what's happening and that we just do everything properly.
So what do we do? Like, do I take over the meeting?
I don't think that
I didn't even
who's in
realize
charge
that
of
would
the
be a
meeting
thing.
even is important, and I think Mark's right in saying that he would have to recluse himself because it's, you know.
I will
it's
recuse
about-
myself from the vote, but that certainly, I don't have to recuse myself from the discussion.
Right.
That would be pretty un-American.
Yeah.
I don't know. I see what you're saying. I don't know
I
if there's
didn't
any
realize like this
ramifications
was
for
going in this direction.
a committee changing a rule that only impacts only impacts the members of the committee. That's like a for us, by us type of thing.
But we have to
But
look
it
for the.
still has-
There's much else the way around it.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
there's-
I mean, you are the committee.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the next step is plan commission and then council. We're in an
No,
open
we are
public
not
meeting.
the committee, the
We're
plan
in-
commission and the
We're in an open
council.
public meeting. I do not think that, of course, Mark should make a motion or should vote on anything.
And I don't intend to.
I don't see how else it could happen other than through our discussion and then the next step, so
I mean, this
don't
is
see it
not a
being
new
problem.
discussion, we've been talking about this for like 2
Well, right,
years.
I know I'm coming to this at the.
I
Oh,
think-
it's been
I
so
think we
old,
can
honestly, I
kick
am
this
so
can
sick of
around.
it. I'm
I think
serious.
going forward.
My
time is so
we're just an
valuable.
advisory committee,
You are an advisory committee to plan commission.
and so.
Plan commission's an advisory committee too.
Yeah,
The council.
Sure.
So then it goes to the council and
Yep.
my advice is to stand with the ag committee and the agricultural,
Community, I mean, that's who we
Community.
are.
is the word, because I think it's not well thought out. It's potentially harmful to the ag community, and down the road, it may come back again. And then we'd say, yeah, we should have done something then.
Yeah, like you said, it was probably the most unintentional mistake that was ever made.
I think I'm fine with everything other than number 3. I
So
mean, right
we would
away-
definitely
Yeah.
have to have a motion to amend as well.
Yeah, I agree with you on the number 3, that's more or less, like you said, which side of the road it ends up on may affect.
If a landowner doesn't have control over which side the main goes on, it's gonna go on the side that, I mean, number of factors go into that, but it's probably gonna go on the side where more properties are impacted.
Yeah,
Constructability,
Right,
all
right.
kinds of things, but right-of-ways do change, and a lot of homes that are current, probably nearly all that haven't gone through a certified survey map are going to have 33-foot right-of-ways, and so upon a land division or a CSM,
Yeah.
it's going to, your right-of-way is going to grow by at least 7 feet, so now really, you're talking about 143 feet.
Yeah, you'd
You're
be
totally
lucky to
right.
be inside of that.
How far are you from
I'm saying the home would only have to be 143 feet. It
Better
grew
not talk
now.
any more specifics now then, you know what I mean? Like, we better just like
I just
not
don't think-
entertain.
I would like to see number 3 just stricken or some other language or distance, I guess.
And then the shall, the wording like may authorize, there's just so much subjectivity there, so I would nix that language, I would just change it to shall. Cause that's the whole point of us being here, is to eliminate subjectivity.
Where do you see may or
There's,
shall?
it's may authorize, it says like the director of public
Oh,
works
read
may
right past that.
authorize,
May authorize.
instead of, and I think it should be shall.
That's the other, that's not that one.
No, it's in the first.
It's in the very first like section. And then it's up like section 1? Yeah.
It does, oh, shall be amended, the second line of PM. Director of
Direct-
Public Works,
May, whoa,
Authorize.
there's like VM and little like.
yeah.
parentheses. It's notwithstanding that prohibition.
And realistically, hopefully this, there will never be a failed well, and this, it's a very mute issue.
Let's hope
But
it
if it
never
is-
happens.
If there is a problem, I don't have that kind of fudge in my budget. In my personal budget to run the farm, I don't have that kind of money.
That would be a big loss that year, Mark.
Every year is a big loss.
Adam, you better get better at farming.
So anyway,
Well, you know,
I think we-
a lot of-
I think
lot
we
of
beat it
the
to
large-
death.
It's a loss.
A lot of the
Trust me.
larger dairy farms have gone by the wayside in Fitchburg.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And, you know, with the, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's more of a national movement even to bring back smaller, you know, operations.
It's the healthy
of
way.
Family,
It's the healthy
you know.
way.
I agree with you.
And so you could get someone buying 35 acres that wants to open up a chicken farm
I sure hope
or
so.
something.
I hope not.
Because my neighbors run out of eggs.
I do wanna comment.
I mean, and
Because there are situations where the DNR has come in, Greenfield's an example, Rimrock Road in and said you will put in a municipal system and you will connect them because the private wells are contaminated in the area. So you have to leave some flexibility in there for situations that are beyond our control. So I just wanna point
But
that
I
out.
don't think this
Like, that's not the
situation,
intention of the word may. I mean, the idea of this, the intent of this is if you meet these conditions that you would be able to do it. But there are situations where if the DNR were to come in where we would not be able to. So I want
You
to
could-
point that out.
You could rectify that with using shall and then a notwithstanding statement of
shall or will.
unless other,
put
you know,
the
notwithstanding
flexibility in
the
it.
mandate of another organization, then it's still a shall.
Yeah, and I don't think that's like the same situation if the DNR comes in. The situation at hand here is like if your well fails, we wanna be able to replace your well and not have to hook up to public water. So I think this is a very appropriate situation where you would want to use shall or will and be very close, black and white. I understand there's other situations where you wouldn't want to be like stringent though, but this particular one, I think you would.
If the DNR came in, to your point, they have a much larger club than the city does.
Oh, do they ever, yes.
What is,
But our
so
ordinance would be,
at the beginning of BM, notwithstanding the prohibition set forth in subsection A, what is subsection A?
Okay, so.
So does everybody know what that means when it reads like that?
I don't know what that
That means that all of this is true unless it conflicts with something else in whatever's in section A.
And we're eliminating number 3.
That'd be my proposal.
Me
in the motion. But
How could we just make this simple?
So section A, set forth in section, direct me again, Adam.
section 1, 30.67 BM shall be amended to read as follows. BM.
Subsection. Oh, okay,
So
I can find it.
It should be right before N, but N is next.
No.
before that one.
Dina knows where to go.
Oh, I'm in the wrong place, 34, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not right.
That was
3067. Ugh, man, it's been a day.
I wonder how this could just be simplified.
So everything is true in that thing we've been reading unless it's, without reading through it, private wells are, so unless a private well is prohibited, then everything else applies. Which is, I think, what you were saying, that if the DNR were saying, you can't put a well here, period.
Yeah, this place is ruined.
yeah,
So the notwithstanding statement that I was saying we could add to avoid, to get rid of the may and go to shall already exists.
I think for interpretation purposes, so we better have shall.
Well, I just want to make sure that if you have cattle and your well fails, so in order to water those animals, you call up Sam's and you get them to come in as quickly as they possibly can, so you only transport water for the shortest time possible. And then you don't get hit with, then the house doesn't get hit with an additional fee.
We could like eliminate all those other subsections if we just wrote like the director of public works will authorize the construction and operation of a private well, like period, done, boom. Instead of using may and then listing all of these conditions, it's really unnecessary. Someone spent a lot of extra work on this, they really didn't need to.
No,
That's probably
this
your
is for egg land, and if you did that, then anybody could drill a new well.
Okay,
So that's why the conditions are needed.
okay, so it has to be, okay.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
the zoning is the key point.
Okay, yes,
The zoning is the key point.
yes, because we
And
are
that's the
concerned
protection for the city.
with egg land.
But it's still a huge fight for And it may be me today.
We're
it may
not
be-
doing that, Mark.
Maybe
Like,
another,
that is off the table.
and maybe
Say less.
somebody else later.
That is all, like, that is unagree, like, I am in total disagreement with that. I think we all are in some level.
Me.
So Deanna, what do you suggest? Like, I know this is really, like, I know, wait, I didn't mean to, okay, that was not fair. Okay, how do you help us to word this?
Well, I think what you need, if you're not happy with the wording, then you need to make a motion to change, and of course, Mark's gonna have to step out. You're gonna have to make a
I can
motion,
stay in the room.
Or just step aside.
very specific.
Amy will take over the
Very
meeting.
I've done that
specifically.
one other time. I have taken over the
Amy will
meeting,
take
that's
over
why
the
I
meeting,
offered.
and
And it went
I will
okay.
recuse myself from any votes.
I think you gotta be careful about going from may to shall, just because of other agencies might be involved here.
And they would supersede us anyways, so.
They would, but we don't want to be in a situation where we have conflicting permits. That doesn't look good either, right? So if you leave shall, the city has to issue the permit, and then it might not be, we don't wanna have conflicting permits. So I think you would have to somehow address
How do we address
that.
the timing?
What's that?
How do we address the timing in that situation?
The timing. What do you mean?
I think, are you referencing when I said if someone's
What
like on
you-
vacation or something? So I like made a comment earlier, like what if we have to wait if someone's out of the office, like whoever, I don't even know the director.
So if you
Director,
wanna,
assistant.
if you,
Okay, so there would be like no wait time for a permit essentially?
if you wanted to address that, you could say something to the effect of within 30 days, within 15 days, whatever the timeline is, that the Director of Public Works may or shall, or whatever you use, I lose my place here, may authorize the construction and operation of a private well if no response is given or denied within 30 days, it's automatically approved or denied.
Whether you have may or shall in there, you don't get to just call and drill your well. I mean, you
Right,
still
yeah.
have to,
Right.
even if they have to issue the permit because of this ordinance, you still have to call and get the
Yeah.
permit. So there's no, it doesn't allow you to do
I
anything
don't think
faster.
it really
But
changes
the
much.
permit should be like
Right.
an automatic, right? It's like Sam's well drilling wouldn't put in a well if your groundwater was contaminated, right? Like you would have to, like perkability testing, I think I had to prove,
Perk
like,
is for septic.
okay, I had to do like something. We had like some holes dug in the ground.
I don't know, I think they drill the hole and they sample the water after they've drilled the hole.
You're correct, they sample it
So
after.
if you've got bad water, then just go deeper, I
But
believe.
if you're in agriculture operation with animals and you call SAMs, you get priority treatment.
Yes, you do.
You automatically get a priority treatment from them. I know that for a fact.
Oh, they shared that with me.
They will jump through whatever hoops they can to make sure the animals have water.
Yep.
They're pretty good
They
about that.
will.
Sam's is the one that would be applying.
Sam's well drilling,
Right.
yes, they do the applying.
Yep, they apply for the,
Right.
they go through the state, and I believe that the city is notified.
So the city has to give a permit in addition to the state then, if you're getting one from the state? If you got it from the state, why should the city say no? I feel like the state should be the controller.
I don't think generally the city is saying no, correctly.
Okay.
If you're meeting what's laid out in the ordinance, I think the city is generally issuing permits, right?
So in this, like,
Say that again, because I didn't quite catch,
I
everybody's
said
speaking very quietly.
I said I don't think
So-
I think this, as long as you're meeting the conditions in the ordinance, the city is issuing the permit. I mean, the city isn't individually evaluating whether or not they
How does
want
that,
to. one way or the
maybe
other.
Tracy can help us, how does that process work? When Amy did her well.
Yeah.
That was 7 years ago.
yeah, 7 or 8.
I don't believe that we
8
did.
years ago.
We did not have to get a permit from the city to drill your well.
I don't think,
You have to get a DNR permit to drill a well, and I believe
But
you
Sam's does
probably-
that.
You probably need a building permit too.
Oh, yeah, no, that's,
You don't have a public works permit if that's what you're asking, but you'd have a building permit associated with that, and a DNR permit.
for a new home, yes. For an existing well,
I believe you need a DNR permit for that too.
Yes, you do, but that's done, Sam's does that.
For you, yes.
Yes, Sam's does that for you, but the homeowner or the farm owner does not have to get a permit from the city. That's all done through Sam's.
That's correct.
That's what I thought.
I don't remember getting any
No,
permits for that.
you did not.
Okay, so the real issue here is the distance then, because the city is gonna give a
And
permit
if
the
there
well
is
goes bad?
I do think the mayor shall, although I'm not a fan of may language, but I mean, it's everywhere, and I don't think it's really dangerous, I would say here.
In
So
this
I'm
situation,
not
it's
so
not
concerned about
dangerous.
the mayor shall.
I'm kind of concerned about it, but I think I have to give the city the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I think someone made an honest mistake here, and I think they want to
Well, I
truly be
think
helpful.
may is a very, like,
So the condition, I have an
It
idea.
says-
The condition then, if we keep may, is that the DNR agrees to the well being sufficient, the location being sufficient for a well? Is that agreeable?
they already do.
They already have that power. They already make that.
So
And that's not
then,
within the purview of our ordinance anyways.
so how do we eliminate the burden of our ordinance?
Well, the shall or may, if it were, they shall do it, but unless it's precluded by some other
Entity or
DNR,
DNR?
as Tracy pointed out, if there was a toxic environment, the DNR is not going to issue Sam's a permit to drill that.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to. You wouldn't want that.
Well, I mean, there's not.
If you have a
So, I mean,
toxic
Sam's has got a pretty big organization, but if you have animals, Sam's moves you right to the top of the list. I mean, they do that. It becomes a very big priority for them.
I mean, rightfully so.
And you said that you are issuing a building permit for both a replacement or a new construction. So that means that this is not causing a problem for Sam's, because they're coming to you to get the building permit on behalf of the homeowner, correct?
Wait, or do
Is that
they
what you
go
said?
to the state and not you at all?
No, I do think we get a building permit for it. How would we know the well was drilled if we didn't?
So they're just coming on behalf of the homeowner the same way a contractor would.
Just an agent.
Yeah, it's just an
You could
agent
fill
for
it
the
out
homeowner.
yourself,
Right.
but they're
Right.
pretty good at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can do this
They're allowed to
online, it's
do
so
it for
user
them.
friendly.
Right, okay.
I would bet
The online
that
systems.
of the wells that have been replaced in the city of Fitchburg in the last, agricultural wells in the last 20 years, there's never been a building permit, because that's the only thing they did is place the well. I bet pretty good money on that.
But you gotta reconnect it to the plumbing.
Yes, but to drill the well. But I'm gonna bet that most people never got a permit for that. Didn't know they even had
You're
it.
not drilling wells without connecting it. So the act of drilling the well doesn't need the building permit, but the act of utilizing
Connecting
the
it.
connection to the well does.
I
So
agree with
you're
that.
permitting the connection, you're not permitting the well.
But I would bet in 20 years, there's been very few for that, in that situation, where they actually got a building permit though.
Well, I would think it'd be every one of them.
If you got a plumber, you better have a plumbing.
Yeah,
Pull the building permit to get it.
without
In order to pull a plumbing permit in Fitchburg, you gotta pull.
But
a
the
building
plumber would
permit.
require that in order to do the work.
Yeah.
So there's like some
They would just
gatekeeping
build-
there.
They would just build it into there, yeah.
Yeah, there's
Process.
gatekeeping there. Can't imagine calling a
So
plumber.
we'll have to, yeah, and that, I did budget, in this bid work, I did budget money for the plumber.
You need a plumber.
If you guys are ready to make a vote, I'll turn the meeting over to Amy, whenever you're ready.
So the only flexible option we're putting into this is to change from may to shall?
No, if I were to make a motion, I would make only a motion to just strike number 3.
Okay,
That'd be my motion. I would leave may alone.
Is Tracy, what is your role in this? I'm sorry, I
I
don't.
wrote it.
You did. You wrote it.
Yes.
She's like, thanks.
I-
But But you realize I said unintentional mistakes. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm like, someone spent too much time on this. You're like, that was my time. I could have been doing other stuff.
She did say that at the beginning.
I didn't realize that was your role. I'm sorry. I need to introduce myself to you at some point.
And the,
So what is,
the mayor, or if you eliminate item 3, that would solve one of the problems, but the mayor shall is another timing issue.
I don't think it is though.
That's not a timing issue.
Yeah.
so Tracy, if we eliminated number 3 and someone if Mark's daughter came to you and was like, the well went bad, dad's in the nursing home, we're trying to take care of the livestock, and 3 was gone, you would just give her the permit?
She'd have to provide her DNR permit, right?
She would get a DNR permit, of course, that says this place is still okay. And then you would just authorize the permit to her?
So they would need their building permit and they would need their DNR permit for it, right?
Okay.
And then we look to make sure they meet the ordinance requirements.
Yep, agriculture.
Yeah, and then they also have a permit because they're in the urban service area, so they have to have, after it's drilled, they have to show that you have the water quality, right? That you meet all the DNR requirements.
Sam's does that.
So, yeah, so there's a 2-step process. There's one getting the permit, but then if you're gonna use your home, right, well, if you're gonna use it in general, then you have to provide the documentation to meet the DNR requirements and that the water is safe.
Okay. So you're not in a situation where you're interested in saying no to her?
No. We're following the ordinance. That's why.
But number 3, you would have to say no to her potentially because she's 150 feet.
We would follow the ordinance. So if they were within the 150 feet, then we would deny the request.
It's really helpful that you're here. I did not even realize you were that person, honestly. So basically, we just need to eliminate 3, and we solved our problem?
That's my proposal.
Is this right?
I think that's an easy call.
Is it that easy, though?
Well, no.
Because life is not that easy.
That's a good start, though.
It's that easy to make a motion and achieve what I believe we're after here.
Okay.
Whether that will carry forward at the plan commission level and whether it will carry forward at the council level.
Right.
It's not that easy. I mean,
Right,
it could be,
right.
it may not be.
Right.
But it starts here, right? So
Yeah. We're advisory committee.
is there anything else to discuss on it?
It's, like I say, it's as long as there's some assurance that the city will not hold up that permit.
I don't think they're interested in doing that. This 150 feet was an unintentional mistake 25 years ago.
Unintentional,
It was unintentional 25 years ago, right?
Well, it was, Tracy had said that it was
She was
a
given
guided
this-
decision
Yeah.
to answer to address a question or a.
Yeah.
A very specific
Someone
issue.
was given a question 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes, we're humans.
But looking forward, it could come back.
It could come back.
Issues, that as you move your urban service line, and I've always said, keep in mind, Fitchburg City and in the state with the largest acreage of ag land, and we want to protect.
Well, let me point out one more thing to the group. As we look at the zoning change, Deanna, and you have a large rural residential lot that could be divided into 1, 2, or 3 lots, for example, to meet the mayor's desire to provide more housing for Dane County. We have to look at the zoning code to serve some of the big lots. Maybe there should be 2 houses there instead of 3. And then the water situation.
Well, rural residential, they'd be connecting,
Well, like
hands down.
a rural residential cluster ordinance, would this
No,
pertain?
that would be a PDD zoning under our
Okay.
thing, so.
And
This ordinance is only going to address if you're AS, small lot ag,
Okay,
exclusive ag AX, or AT, which is ag transition.
Okay.
And if you have a rural residential and your well fails and you're within the 200 foot, you're connecting.
Then you connect. It's all about the zoning.
If you have,
All about the zoning.
But
if
there
you
will
have
be,
rural residential at all, you're connecting, right?
Yeah, you're connecting if you're rural residential.
there will be
Oh, I'm
those
sorry.
situations
Yeah.
that come up.
You're within 200 feet of the main.
Yeah.
I blurred that with 150
But
feet
if the
of the house.
main ever comes, I have a question about my house, and I don't know distances, but since we have this wealth of information, so I have a rural residential lot, and then like all this farmland. So if the water main got out to me, I would have to be connecting no matter how many feet I am?
No, if the water main got out to you, so it's a little bit off the conversation here. So let's say the water main was run in front of your house and it's rural residential, right? So as long as you're able, the way it's the compulsory connection set up today, as long as you're able to acquire a private well permit, which is showing that it meets DNR requirements and that your water is safe, then you can apply for, or they're 5-year permits. Every 5 years you will need to renew it. You can apply for that to keep your well and not connect, is how it's set up today.
For 5 years.
5 years, and then you have to apply again. So you'd have
Give
to
you a chance
test
for
your
budget.
water. You have to test your water and then have it tested.
As long as
your
it's
well.
still good every 5 years,
Yeah.
you're reauthorized.
Yep, and a master plumber has to inspect your well and provide notice that it's compliant with DNR requirements.
Is it
Rightfully
renewable
so.
after 5 years, or in 5 years you have to hook up?
Renewable. It's
Renewable.
Yeah,
That
so you
makes
can
sense.
just keep renewing, and that's been in place for, since
Okay.
2009, we changed the ordinance.
Okay.
Before that, you would have had to connect.
So
Yeah.
I think you know what you want to motion, correct? Do you wanna,
Oh, maybe you hand the
Turn
meeting over to
If
me?
you're,
Okay.
whenever you're ready, Amy
Do I
will
need
become
to
the chair.
say anything formal?
no, I think he just turns it over and then
Okay.
you can make a motion to amend. Yeah,
I would like to make a motion to amend what's in front of us by just striking number 3 from the amendment.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So our motion passes.
Unanimous.
That was your roll. Mark, you're back.
So now we did a motion, we still need, that was a motion to amend, we'll still need a motion to approve ordinance 2025
With the amendment.
with,
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance
2025.
2025 with the amendment that just passed.
Striking 3. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
and now you
And
get back your power.
And we're all thankful for that.
thank you,
Thank you for the information, Tracy. You too. It was nice meeting you from afar.
Good to see you.
Well, hopefully the planning commission will understand.
Are you a member of the planning
I
commission?
am
No,
not a member of
that's
the
the
planning
other
commission.
gal that's not here tonight. Oh, shoot.
I'm a member of the council, so.
You are, thankfully.
Try to carry the water.
Who takes the,
Nicole's,
reports to the plan commission?
Oh,
Shelley
that's
does,
Shelley,
but
yeah.
in her, I will need to fill in for Shelley.
Okay, cool. That was just,
Oh, okay.
just make sure that we're
Perfect.
clear.
I will communicate
Okay.
to the best of my ability, our discussions.
Very good.
Agenda items.
We do, I would like to just touch on, I think, I would like to touch on the Copus property here
Yeah,
and get
that's
some
the
feedback
next.
from you, and then, I think we could probably postpone the discussion on the new farm residents, but let me just grab a couple of documents here for us.
That would be item 5, number B.
Yes, sir.
School for Girls. What was that? To the south.
Yeah,
Backs up to
and the state property is just to the south. So, you know what, I guess I can do here. Grab one other thing, of course, there, you never see this very well.
This is where they want to go.
Way off the beaten path.
me get us orientated on our map down here. Though I know that Adam knows this property well.
Yeah, I don't really wanna, I'm not gonna recluse myself, but I don't really wanna comment on this too much.
Okay. So Mark and Carrie Copus own this parcel. Of course, Adam's right next door. They have some existing buildings. The farmstead is up here. The farmhouse is up here. This is Cyan coming in. And so Mark and Carrie would really, really like to build a house back here,
Okay.
right about there.
Okay.
Oh, yep.
How many feet from the water main?
Quite a distance, like quite a
8 miles.
distance.
Think they're the safe zone?
Actually, it's probably only half a mile.
Oh, really? Okay, not that far.
And so they do not have any claims or splits on this parcel any longer.
But that's a 43 acreage?
Yep, I think you're right.
49 acres?
49.
49 acres.
Yeah, you got
Yeah,
that, George.
49.3.
Mhm. And they do not have any splits or claims. They would purchase a split from Pat Kane. Pat Kane has one left on this property that he may be willing to sell. Mark and Carrie Copus. So what they would do, and I'm not an advocate in this at all, but they would use that claim to create the residential lot, rezone it to residential around the existing house, and probably take a couple of outbuildings, and then they would build on the remainder their house. They would like to have a new house, is what they would like. I'm gonna go grab, I think he's got a couple other drawings here. Oh, that's my claim.
Is it currently being farmed, that land, or what's going on with the current land use? What it was,
Is there any cropland on Copus's?
They'll grow pumpkins or 1 year Mark had grown,
I think they did some hemp one year or something.
yeah. But you're talking,
It's a large lot.
what does our
large
fire
woodland.
department say about this? I
The
think.
fire department is concerned about these long
Oh,
driveways.
yeah, I think they would be more important than us.
Yeah, the fire department is concerned about these large driveways.
In a
They
forest?
would definitely have to put at least a couple of turnarounds in. It's gonna have to be a wider driveway, has to be a stable surface. They would have to be able to accommodate one of our big fire
Heritage
trucks.
trees?
Yeah.
What about heritage
What's
trees?
that,
Okay.
easement width? The width of the easement?
The width,
that's the, I think one of Mark and Carrie's conflicts is that they wouldn't create an easement access to the property, they would divide it in such a way that
this is what
They
they're
could just get around it.
proposing.
They could just get around it.
Oh, I see.
This is a good way to put it.
Oh, I see what.
They would get around it.
Yeah.
So they are creating, and like I said, I don't know that this is a good direction,
What side are you on?
but they would
You're
create
next.
that lot
lot 3.
and use that split, and then they would have this very, very odd shaped lot.
Yeah.
Very
I
odd.
think that the concern is flag lots, access.
Yes.
Well, the access is the issue. We need to talk to the fire department. I think, because I think when you mentioned, Deanna, that it's kind of in a forest. If the house would really be almost unsalvageable if it went up in a forest.
Can you go back to that other
Yeah.
screen, please?
Like this, I don't know that, Mark and I kind of talked about this, I think this might have been farmed maybe 20 years ago. I can pull up an older,
That's what I
I can pull back to 2000. Give it a minute to decide what it wants to do. This is 2000.
Buffy was his nickname.
2000.
Bob, not
Buffy, I remember him. I could see him to this day.
Mr. Byrne.
Bobby Byrne.
Yeah.
Oh, came to me from my childhood. Wow, I still got a memory left. So
That's burned
So,
up.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I thought some of that was farmed at the time.
He
So
did.
what's
this
what's
is
in there?
2000.
Yeah,
That's 2000, okay.
yeah. So what, they have let that grow up to scrub.
Wow, did it ever grow?
So yeah, I don't think there's any heritage trees
There's
on
not
there.
any in there.
Oh, so that's farmland that's been let go?
Yeah.
Dang it.
So it's 25 years, huh?
Why did they let that go?
Well, so if you want a little history on it.
We got time.
When the property was sold from Byrne, it was sold to Dave
Ranky,
Ranky.
yep, I remember
And
that.
Ranky wanted more hunting land.
Yep.
Oh,
So he
Okay.
let that go, and part of my parcel, and these are the stupidest property lines as a surveyor
Okay.
that I've ever seen created.
Oh.
I
Okay.
can't
It
figure
is.
out why.
Well, they had
I know
to
the
take a
difference
chunk.
between Vito and that. to
Yeah,
get
and they
building-
had to take a chunk. They took this chunk,
to get-
so he got his 35 acres to keep it in.
So that part I get, but you've
To
got
keep
lot
it
lines that
moving.
don't follow section lines and through the middle of my field and.
Weird.
Took a crayon and.
Yeah, if you turn on today, go back to today's aerial, I
An
was
experienced
farming
surveyor.
and renting like 2 acres from Mark, that corner right there, who made that? It was
Oh.
like somebody did it from an aerial and had
Oh.
a bad adjustment done.
Dang it.
That's really what I think it was.
It's right into that farm
And
field.
the realtor was involved with that.
This,
Oh.
it looks like this
I've not
line,
heard pleasant things about the
Yeah,
this
realtor
line
involved
should
in
have
this.
been right.
There was problems there.
Yes, all of a sudden that guy's name shot up with a lot of these farm properties for sale.
Yeah,
Oh,
there was
Far
problems.
or something. No, this realtor.
Oh, yeah.
He all of a
yeah.
sudden got hold of a lot of.
But we don't need to mention
Steve
that.
Forer.
Yeah, we won't need to mention that.
That name.
Anyway, but there was
The
problems.
name you just mentioned.
There was problems with that, with this whole separation, the way it was done. So.
Yeah, some things went awry.
So
Well,
I
he was
will,
just a realtor.
definitely, we can have Mark follow up on, with the fire department, but I think there's a, I think we need to,
Does the house need to be within 150 feet from a current dwelling? A home, or 300
I
feet?
should have brought
I
that.
believe
Well,
my
so-
house had to be a certain distance from an existing home.
Yeah,
So
you're
his current
supposed to
home-
keep them closer.
And
So he
then,
could put the 150 feet
residential.
from his current home. Maybe, would
I-
that qualify?
I think there's an interesting discussion here, because we set precedents with everything that we do, right?
Yep.
And, certainly, he could cut off, a piece here and do a residential lot for
Sure.
a new home.
Sure, right down
There's,
there.
there's no reason why he couldn't use that claim to create a new residential lot, clean this up and just take the new residential lot and then leave the rest.
They want to be.
In the woods.
But
And you gotta
but-
build like a movable home, like park a camper back there or something. It's your property, right? Like do you need a permit for a tiny
That's
home?
kind of cool to do, just
That will be it. This,
Make really nice.
It's like a
they make-
cabin in the
They make
woods.
really nice campers.
They
what
do.
he's,
They
what
own a
he's-
really nice camper. You do have a nice camper.
what he's requesting is going to be a difficult one for this committee to approve.
Yeah, I think the
But
fire.
Deanna brings up a very good point. If he did bought the split and use the rural residential criteria, he could probably do it if he kept it up front.
Yeah, like
He
within
could
a,
demolish the house and build another house elsewhere on the property,
With a-
by the way. Not that he does not want to do that,
Yeah, that is an option.
but that
He
he
can
can,
without any.
he can, without it, well, I mean,
Well,
aside from the normal practices,
takedown.
but he doesn't need to buy 100, 5,000, 150,000, I don't know what a building right
What
goes
a-
for, but
Split, yeah.
he doesn't need to buy that,
he said 100,000 splits.
but
We've got two if he wants one of those.
People always are asking about where can I buy a split? But it can't be a split used for rural residential development criteria. It has to be one of those splits one of your two splits, right?
And it's not in a FUTA.
That's not, if you're in a FUTA, you only get the one split, so.
And I believe correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're in a FUTA, you can't sell a split in a FUTA. You can use, unless you sell it for cluster.
I'm not
Or a cluster.
clear.
So you've got a couple things here in fire department access,
Yeah, they need to just
flag
deal with
lot,
this.
and then the newly created lot doesn't meet the 2-to-1 requirement.
Yeah, it's not within the right
It
distance.
does not meet the 2-to-1 requirement.
Those are just the three things on the surface that I see that this committee should look at. I'm not giving any opinion on any of them or trying to push anything in any way, but those are the three hurdles that Mark and Carrie have to overcome, I believe.
Sorry, can you tell me what the 2-to-1 requirement is?
The lot depth has to be twice its width.
Thank you.
They're very close. They've got, they're not. Wait, he wrote 320 twice, so he's got 230 feet to 320 feet. So the depth would have to be 460 feet to meet that
Twice the
2-to-1,
width.
and he's 140 feet short of
And we're
that.
supposed to keep it at 1.5 acres or smaller on these, so.
Yeah, now that we have approved a little bit bigger ones, but there's usually was a reason
Yeah, I think
because of topography or because of.
And I think his reason here would be that the existing buildings to be encompassed in this lot, you can't really divide down the middle of a building, and so it's either demolish a building, like a machine shed that's there, or, which would help with the 1.5 acres and the minimum, or the 2-to-1, but it demolishes a perfectly good building. What, I guess if, without, I said I wouldn't want to do this, but another option is a CSM between Vito Gervasi's property, which is on the west, and Copus's property, which is lot 1 and lot 2 of this CSM, changing the boundaries, and you can manipulate the line however you want so that you maintain that 35 acres, then Vito Gervasi retains his building right, and Mark Copus gets a different lot configuration to address retention of buildings and maybe a clearer fire department access. Then you're only left with one restriction or one hardship, or one hurdle, there you go, thank you, being the flag lot.
Well, we don't want flag lots.
No, but if he stays over the 35 acres, that's a different.
Could he construct his new home like kind of right to the, like if I was facing his home, which I don't really know for sure, but to the right or to the left, wherever there's space?
That's what Deanna said.
Like
Yeah,
there.
you know,
Yeah, exactly.
my suggestion was, let's create, and we can approve some different sizes of lots, we've certainly done that, but, you know, keeping the house more consistent with the rural development criteria and creating the lot up the front.
Yeah, and that would, it's gonna, here's another problem that we should look at. When you create a lot like this, where you put the house in the back and the buildings are up front, and then there's another owner in the old house.
Oh.
You're driving past it.
You're creating a whole lot of issues, potential issues.
So he would sell this current house?
Yeah, the idea is he wants to be in the woods
Oh,
and build a
no.
lot and then retain this house.
What if he doesn't get along with his neighbor? They have to share a driveway or something?
They wouldn't share a drive, or they may share, I don't know how it's
be
gonna
like, okay, just like he would like,
Would be an
his
easement
driveway would be like,
Oh
Don't have
my
to drive.
gosh, that
Yeah.
would be like crazy. I think that would be
either an
really
easement or
risky.
like an ingress
Your neighbor's like
easement, or
wild
you'd have to have a
dogs or
second
something.
driveway going through there. And I believe that's the intention
No.
of the 90 feet there, is to have enough room for a fire.
Yeah.
I think
Department
there's some
path.
criteria in the rural residential like criteria, Deanna, that your home has to be, is it within 300 feet from an existing home?
Yeah.
It's like 150 or 300, it's like a certain feet. Cause I remember I had to obey by that when I was building, so. But I wanted to follow all the rules, so I did exactly that.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Here's our rural residential development criteria. This is a little bit older version, but lot shape 2-to-1. So these are requirements. Lot shape 2-to-1, woodland cover. I don't think he's got heritage trees in there. These are the criteria that may be waived. So the lot size, the residential infill, which is what you were discussing, Amy, the house should be located within 300 feet of another residential building.
I remembered that.
So technically,
Probably
these are
about-
criteria that may be waived.
It's probably, where he's proposing it, is probably pretty
Is
close to 300 feet.
It looks like a great deal larger than
It
that.
does, but I think that line is about 1,100 feet.
So
What's
you
the
think-
scale to that map?
But I bet, he's talking about, you can kind of see
He
the light.
wants to be in here.
Yeah, and I think that's
What's the distance? Whoa, I told you, Adam.
600.
There's our surveyor.
Oh, yeah, that was me.
I've never been back there,
Got
but
CAD on that? Yeah, this whole line here is what,
My eyes are like a built-in ruler.
1366?
13.
Pretty neat. CAD programs
At
are
any scale, it doesn't matter if it's this.
pretty neat.
That's a once in a
So
lifetime
it's
thing.
anyway,
way beyond the waivable, I mean, it's
Yeah.
twice the distance of the waivable criteria.
Yeah, we have to.
Just still waivable, but it is twice the distance, yeah.
It's stretching it a ways.
Oh,
So he has some real hurdles to look at here.
Okay, I think that's enough for me to work with him a
Yeah,
little
it's
bit
just
more.
gonna be
I think,
That's all done.
I think this is a pretty
There's no
problematic
slope issues.
approach for the committee, long-term.
I recommend a tiny home in the woods, something you don't need a permit for.
That's a motorhome.
64 square feet, no permit needed.
64 square feet, that's like
You could
a,
have like one of
You
those
have a
handicap
clubhouse.
porta potties.
Yeah, you have a clubhouse.
that's like a dope, no, that's like my horse trailer is like 37 feet and it's pretty big. That's a decent size.
Oh, so your horse trailer would have to be 2 feet wide.
Oh,
64 square feet.
You've got a 600 square foot.
Horse trailer's way too
Yeah, you
big.
know, like that, you know where you put the bales? That's twice as big as.
The horse is more than
Yeah,
64
man.
square feet.
Especially on the back end.
you can't even park my horse trailer.
Don't you measure that in hands?
Yes, that is my real
What is the
measurement.
purpose of 64 square feet?
Oh, if you wanna just build a shed in
But a shed-
Fitchburg, you don't need a permit if it's
A shed is 8 by 10, right?
8 by 8, then you don't need a permit.
64.
Yeah, there's a lot of 8 by 10 sheds.
Yeah.
That
I
my
suppose
shed
that's a
pre-exists.
common thing, if you can get away with that or something.
All right, item B, you comfortable with Deanna moving on?
Yeah, I'll follow up with
Very, very
Mark
good.
and Karen.
Item 5, C, discussion regarding farm residences. We'll need a
Oh,
motion to,
I'll make a motion to table that.
table that. Second,
I second.
all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, a like sign. Ayes have it, as tabled. Report from the department. Deanna, do you have any more for us?
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know the draft neighborhood plans have been up on the website. And if the committee so chooses, we can schedule time for you all to have a discussion about it. And right now, we're planning on Plan Commission next month doing a formal presentation of the neighborhood plans. So we're looking to have all comments and questions back to staff by like July 10th is what we're looking at. We have one more steering committee for Greenfield. That is May 29th. Here in it's on a Thursday, and it'll be in the council chambers.
Okay.
What's going on?
You said the neighborhood meeting is
May 29th.
May 20th?
May 29th.
At 5 p.m.
So we will, I do expect a rather large crowd. We will take public comments.
And your steering committee meeting is?
That's the
That's May
last
29th.
steering
That's
committee.
that's the steering, okay.
Is the Greenfield neighborhood plan kind of squashed?
Far from.
Any,
The
Okay.
draft has been posted up on the website,
Okay.
It is different than it was.
Different.
Yeah, originally.
Okay.
but it is
But,
there.
Yeah, it is there to
Okay.
be reviewed, and then the steering committee's on the 29th, and then June plan commission. And
What date is that plan commission meeting in June?
I have it It's the same day as us, so the 17th.
And they meet at what time? Planning Commission meets at 7?
6:30.
6:30. Okay. All right, Mrs. Greenfield.
I've been waiting for that for a week.
You missed your yoga?
I don't need it now for a whole nother week.
Deanna, you have any?
I've had those.
We have our intern Miranda starting on next Tuesday. I can't believe it's already Memorial Day. And Miranda is going to be helping us because we want to get the update done on the agricultural zoning AX. We have to get recertified for our agricultural zoning ordinance. We got a little reprieve for 2 years and we want to get that wrapped up.
Yep, and that is gonna be one of the things that the intern is doing.
Yes, it is, yep. Yep, she's gonna work on that. She is going to be working on a handful of rezones out of AX to AT. That doesn't change what they can and can't do with the property, but some of our properties zoned AX don't comply with all of the requirements for farmland preservation. So the county would like us to take them back out of AX and put them into AT. So one of those properties is the Oregon School District property down on MM.
All right, that's a good example because they're certainly not, they're gonna continue to farm that for a while, but
they're not going to be.
They're transitioning.
the school district is not in the business of farming it.
No, and they're not going to be eligible for the tax credit,
Right,
so
exactly.
we have to do some cleanup on that too, that we're
Can
gonna
you
bring
think of
forward.
any others off the top of your head? That would make sense.
Yeah, not off the top of my head. It's something that we have to look at though.
What concerns me with that,
Okay,
and it goes back to a me thing. On my dad's farm, I made very sure that was A1 exclusive. And the city changed it to ag transitional against my will.
okay.
And as soon
Well,
as
we'll
they,
take
as
it
soon as
out
they
to-
did that, then the developers made sure that they contacted my brothers, which caused a huge family fight.
Dear.
And I was forced to sell.
Well,
This concerns me.
the ag transitional has exactly the same requirements in our zoning ordinance as AX. It's ditto, essentially.
Exactly, but it opened the door. It did.
Oh.
It did. It opened the door.
I don't know all the
Now-
dynamics
now
of
you-
the specifics, but
You were saying this intern is gonna be working on that?
yeah,
No
our
worries.
intern Miranda is gonna be helping us with that.
Okay.
Miranda, Yep, she's gonna be helping us with that.
Do you have any update? I know Ross was saying that Fitchburg is gonna be pushed off to 2026.
It sounds that way, and part of the reason is South Stoner Neighborhood Plan. We recognize, and this is why we do our neighborhood plans, before we expand our urban service area, we identify what those future sewer and water needs will be. So part of the reason that we're going, there's other reasons, but part of the reason that we're gonna hold off a little bit on Fitrona is to figure out how we're going to properly service the future South Stoner neighborhood in terms of the sanitary. There's a couple of different options. One is to bring sanitary down Fitrona from the north. And so that's what the engineering team is working through.
And let Verona do it. Work that out, I mean, with Verona.
Another option is to serve the west part of South Stoner coming through the town of Verona. So,
And then Lacey Road, west of Seminole, or the south of?
I don't think there's anything right now on the books.
No road work done there, you know, they have the turn lanes marked and all, and
Yeah, I'll have to
there's
check on that one.
utilities, I know,
Yeah,
I know there's a lot of power lines right above all the brand new trees, so
Yeah, well,
they'll probably have to
the
put those down underground.
Edgewood area
Yeah, for the Edgewood.
be
Yeah.
treated, will that be sewer, will that be sanitary sewage? Okay,
Edgewood's new development?
yes.
Oh, yeah, they'll definitely be on
They will
on
be,
the city
and
services.
that is done through Seminole Highway now? How are they?
Yeah, there's a line
I
that
think
has
it's
come
right-
down Seminole and it'll cut across.
Cut across. And then that also will pick up the Leslie O'Brien farm that's, Newcomb is gonna, that, okay.
Yep.
That's what I thought.
And that line will pick up half of South Stoner,
Okay,
the eastern half of South Stoner.
And for Edgewood, they're aware that the trees got planted right where there's a left turn lane into the new campus. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
they can for for quite a while longer, I think they still are able to move those at some point. So yeah, I think that they can, but yeah.
Yeah, I think Ross was saying that, I don't know if it's Ross or Mike Zimmerman was saying something about they'll be getting that probably put underground.
Oh, for the electrical? The
Some of
lines?
it, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know the whole options there, but you mentioned on the Leslie O'Brien farmer, that's gonna be a Newcomb construction department in there?
We approved the minor comp plan amendment to take it from business to high-density residential.
that was a while back.
It was last year.
Have they come
Last
in?
October, I remember.
They went to the
well.
plan commission with the, but yeah, they're moving through the process.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, that's a difficult piece of property to, when they proposed that, the only sad part about it is it should have been done when they did the other piece for traffic. It could have, had it all been done as one, traffic would have.
Seminole and Lacey.
Seminole, Lacey, yeah.
Northwest corner there.
If had they done that all as a big piece, when they did it all,
Yeah,
the traffic configuration could have been different than it is, and it would have worked a lot better.
That barn's still usable.
Maybe, I know a guy who might move it for you.
Mark will move it, it'll disintegrate on the lift.
My daughter's gonna like
That's
change
just what
handcuff herself to it, she loves that thing.
She
that'd be a
does.
perfect.
Yeah, we got by us to see how much more it's falling down. She's like, you can't tear down the barn.
She loves it. That's good. You can appreciate it.
Anything else, Deanna?
No, I'm good.
All right, okay, accept a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, we are adjourned, thank you very much.
I see the hay elevators,
Thank you very
conveyors
much.
still moving in there.